Ladies and gentlemen, we are LIVE live tonight. Welcome, one and all. It is I don't know why I just stuttered there. Wow, it's like I haven't done this intro before. My name is Myers Corp Cosplay. Welcome to Monday Night Nerd. We are LIVE live on the air in your house. I hope you're having a great night. I want to stress this at the beginning. I apologize for the way I sound tonight. If you're someone who needs to trim their nose hairs, I had the worst thing happen. I was trimming my nose hairs and I accidentally cut the inside of my nose. So my nose is running like a madman tonight. So if I have to pause to sneeze or blow my nose, I greatly apologize. I've been dealing with it all day and it's been frustrating as heck. But anyways, thank you all for joining. It is a great Monday here. It is Holiday Monday, May. Wow, I'm screwing up already. August 7th, 2023. And we are here to talk about the top 10 worst comic book movies of all time. Now, this is again my list, not yours, not the worst ever made, my worst, the one I don't like. But we are first going to start off with the news as always. And I have a couple things to talk about. The first one is a Fan Expo cosplay update. If you saw my social media earlier today, I announced that there is a cosplay update. And, well, it's important. You know, this channel, this show, I want to bring value. Now, this is a nerd show, so it's fun. It's entertaining. I hope it's entertaining. It's me talking about stuff I enjoy. But I also want you guys to understand that I'm human. I'm like everybody else. I'm nobody special. I'm a normal guy and I have things that bother me and I have things that I deal with. And I want to tell you guys about how I dealt with things and how I deal with situations, because maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe you're having an issue similar to something that I'm going through or have gone through. And hopefully the way I'm dealing with it gives you some perspective and maybe it helps you maybe the next time you go through something. What I want to talk about is the Fan Expo Masquerade. The Fan Expo Masquerade will be happening Saturday night at Fan Expo at the end of August. And I applied to be a part of the Fan Expo Masquerade. I've applied every year I've gone for the past 9 years. I've been a part of every single one except for the pandemic one because it wasn't really Fan Expo. But I've been a part of every Fan Expo Masquerade. And I applied this year. And I was not accepted. I was not accepted to the Fan Expo Masquerade this year. I got an email last week saying that there were a ton of applications. There was so many good cosplayers. And this year I was not accepted. I was put on a waiting list. And I was told that, if somebody drops out, something like that, you never know. You could be accepted in the future. You just have to wait. Now, I want to talk about how I took that news because, again, this is something I look forward to every single year because I get to meet fellow cosplayers. I get to meet new people. I get to, do the thing I enjoy the most, and that is performing in my cosplay in front of people. And I was denied that this year. So I have to admit, the first emotion I felt when I read that email was shock because I was like, wait. Let me read again. What do you mean? I didn't get accepted? It's me. It's Myers Corp Cosplay. I'm in everyone. My second emotion was anger. I was really angry because this is something I look forward to the day after the last Fan Expo. I look forward to every single year getting in front of everybody, even just for 15 seconds, and performing and showing off the work that I've done in front of an audience. However, after a few moments, I had a little bit of acceptance. And I realized that it's out of my control. I did everything I could. And I can't do anything else. I can't kick, I can't scream, I can't complain. It just is what it is. And the next emotion I felt was happiness because I thought back to when I first cosplayed and when I first went into that masquerade green room and I saw all those amazing cosplayers. And I went on stage for that first time. And it wasn't the greatest performance. If you want to check it out, it's on my YouTube page. It's the Terrence and Phillip one. But I got a laugh. And I wanted to keep doing it. And I keep thinking, maybe the spot that I would have taken at the masquerade this year is going to be given to somebody who this is their first time. And maybe this is their first chance to go on stage and show off their cosplay. And maybe they will get a standing ovation. Maybe they'll get a big cheer from the crowd. And maybe this will give them the drive to pursue their cosplaying dreams and to build bigger cosplays and better cosplays. Now, like I said, while the first initial feeling was shock and then anger, I really had to sit back and think about what the old me would have done. And when I say the old me, anybody who's ever watched this show knows that the sponsor of the show every week is my wife. And every single week I say, I would not be the person I am without her. And that's not just a line to get brownie points. It's the truth. Because when she first met me, I was a very different person. I was not good at taking criticism. I'm still not amazing at it, but I'm better. I've grown. I'm not good at taking negativity. Again, I'm better. I'm still not great at it. And I know that the old me, before I met my wife, if I got the news that this thing you've been planning for and hoping for a year is now not happening, I know that the shock and anger would still be there, but there'd be no acceptance and no happiness. I know that the old me would have stuck with that anger. I probably would have sold the ticket, and I probably would have never gone back to Fan Expo, because I would have had the mindset of, you don't want me there. You obviously don't see how good I am. So I don't want to give you the benefit of having me if you don't think I should be there. And while that is a way to take some things, that's not the way to take this. Because again, there may be 1,000 different reasons why this happened. And there's probably 1,000 different reasons why it didn't happen, and why that's a good thing. Because when what's the company that owns Fan Expo? When the company that owns Fan Expo, when they purchased Fan Expo and they had the current group start the masquerade process, which was 2018, I believe. When they first started, I was not a part of that masquerade because I actually had some friends come in, and it was their first con, and I wanted to sit with them in the audience because I told them how great the masquerade was. And when they saw the masquerade, it wasn't very good. And I'm not blaming the host. I'm not blaming anything about the way it was put together. It was their first run. There's going to be bumps. And I remember hearing from them and many of the cosplayers who were in it that year, that they were never coming back because they didn't enjoy themselves. And I had many people tell me that I shouldn't go back, that I shouldn't be a part of any of them in the future because they didn't feel like it was up to what it was. Now, if I listened to them and took that negativity, I wouldn't have performed at 2019's Fan Expo. I would have missed that year. And what I would have missed out on is I would have missed out on a giant crowd reaction for my Luigi costume. I would have missed out on meeting cool cosplayers like Reed Props Plus. I would have missed out on the audience calling me back on stage because they enjoyed my performance so much. I would have missed interacting with the hosts. So if I listened to the negativity, I would have missed out on all that. Maybe that's the same thing that's happening now. maybe I'm missing this for a reason. Maybe the night of the masquerade, I'm going to run into somebody or something's going to happen that is going to be better than going up on stage. Who knows? But I can't sit here and be negative about it. So, to anybody who is going to be in the masquerade, congratulations. I'm glad you're accepted. I can't wait to hear about your cosplays. I'm not 100% if I'm going to be in the audience or not. I'm going to try to, but based on having that night free, I might do something else. Again, we'll see. Again, things might change. I might get accepted later because someone bailed. I don't know. But as of right now, I will not be a part of the masquerade this year. It's not the end of the world. I'm still going to continue cosplaying. I'm still going to make Dash Rendar the best cosplay I could, even though that was the cosplay I was going to participate in. I'm still going to have a great time at Expo, and I hope to see all of you at this year's Fan Expo because we're going to have a blast. But that is my Fan Expo cosplay update. Yeah. Let's jump into the next little bit of news. TMNT Mutant Mayhem. Now, if you watched my episode last week, you saw that one of, if not my favorite cosplay. Wow, I'm slipping tonight. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, comic book movies of all time is TMNT, the movie from 1990. It is still an amazing movie. I watched some people on a YouTube channel review it yesterday, and they loved it. And while they were watching clips of it, I was stopping what I was doing to watch it because I enjoy that movie that much. So going into this Mutant Mayhem, I was worried because I'd seen the trailers, I'd seen the hype for it, I'd seen all the cool things about it. And I was like, don't fail me now, because we've had many movies where the trailer looks amazing and we get into the theater and we go, that's it? That did not happen. This was such a good movie. This was such a good movie. In fact, I will give it as in the first TMNT, a 9.95. It was great. The animation was amazing. It does obviously play a little bit and is drawn a little bit inspired by the Spider-Verse films. 100% cannot deny that. However, it is a different style. If you look closely, and my buddy Dave, who was with me, he mentioned it after the movie was over, it felt very hand-drawn, almost as if a kid drew it, because you can see on some of the light fixtures, they've got the squiggle lines next to it to show the light bouncing off. Stuff like that is not the exact same animation style that Spider-Verse has, but it is still a similar style, and I completely see the critique that some people have that it's inspired by it. Well, when you do an amazing movie, you're going to have people inspired by it. So I can't bash them for it. They did a great, in their own interpretation of an amazing style. The Turtles are great. The Turtles act like teenagers because, they're teenagers. That's in the title. I've seen people critique that, well, they get kind of annoying because they won't shut up. That's a teenager. That's what teenagers do. I really enjoyed the way they were written. I really enjoyed the one-liners they would throw, the little references to real things, movies, and events that we've all experienced and seen. That is my one critique of the movie, is that while there are nice quips and references to things, like there's a running joke about Mark Ruffalo, will that work later on? I don't know, because the TMNT movie from the 90s has a similar thing, but those quips they still work, but I'm of that generation, so I'm okay. Does a kid understand those references? I don't know. So that's the only little quip I have. The origins have changed of several different characters, which I appreciate. Yes, they are not the exact same as the source material. I completely understand that, but it is still done well. If you had told me, and I'm not going to spoil it, that the movie would have ended the way it was, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have went, yeah, right, that's some weird fan fiction that's not actually going to happen. They end it in a really interesting way that leads into the next movie. Obviously, they're planning for a second movie because they had so many good ideas in this one. They're going to have so many in the next one. I do want to say one thing. I have seen a ton of comments about the way April is portrayed in this movie. If you've seen the trailer, you know that the April in this movie is not the April of the last movie. It is not the April of any other TMNT ever made. This is an African American teenager, April O'Neil. Now, the amount of people that I have seen comment saying, this isn't my April, this isn't ugly, fat April, folks, first off, she was African American in the original comics. So, if anything, that is the original April. Second of all, it's a cartoon. Come on. And number 3, she's in high school, folks. So if you're caring about what a teenager looks like in a cartoon about some mutant turtles, think about what you're really arguing, folks. It's not the end of the world. It's okay. There will be another TMNT property in about 5 minutes. Enjoy that one. Overall, though, it was a great movie. I can't recommend it enough. It is. I don't see how it's not going to make a ton of money at the box office, especially on a holiday weekend. The Geeks and Co. family said they hopped in on the Instagram live that comes on before this show on my Instagram, and they mentioned they were going to the movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are taking their family out to see it, because it's such a good movie. It's good for the kids. It is good for adults. If you're a TMNT fan who's an adult or a kid, you'll get all the references. You'll enjoy it to the nth degree. Go see it. It deserves all the love and all the money. Another little review we're going to do before we hop into the main event is I watched a documentary. I watched a 5-part documentary on Netflix the past 2 days, The American Gladiators, Muscle and Mayhem. Now, I grew up watching the American Gladiators. I didn't think anyone didn't watch American Gladiators, but when I mentioned it to my wife, she goes, "What's American Gladiators?" So, if you've never seen American Gladiators, it is a TV show where they have some very, very, very fit individuals who are the gladiators, and it is a physical competition show where they get average people to come on and compete in physical events, and they crown a champion at the end. I loved this show as a kid. It was so fun to see average people go battle with these huge, hulking male and female gladiators in competitions. And this was a really cool behind-the-scenes understanding of what happened to the show, because I think we all, if you did watch it, it just ended. And, what happened and where did these gladiators go? Because one season they're there, one season they're not. It goes all into the backstories. It interviews many of the original team from the 1990 season. Such a good documentary. Go watch it. It's an hour an episode. It's 5 episodes. It dives into the live tour, which I remember seeing promos for. I never got to see it live, but they did a live tour, the different seasons, what each gladiator was like, their backstories, what the producers felt like, what the runners of the show was like. It was such a good documentary. I had it on the background while I was doing some cosplaying. I stopped many times to actually watch it and didn't just listen to it. But overall, it was a great documentary. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix, so everybody and their aunt has Netflix. Go check it out. Didn't expect it, but it was good. It was good. Folks, we are at what are we at? We're at the 19-minute mark. We're going to take a quick drinky drink, and then we're going to jump into the main event, and that is the top 10 worst comic book movies. But first, we have a sponsor. And that sponsor, as always, as I said earlier in the show, is my wife, my beautiful, amazing wife. Without her, as I said, I would not be the person I am without her. I really am a different person with her. I'm a better person with her. I'm a better person with her. I want to make sure to say that correctly. And yeah, hon, I love you. It means a ton that you've always had my back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. You mean the world to me. Here we go, folks. We're at 20 minutes. Let's jump into it. Top 10 worst comic book movies. Now, let's do a little preface before we jump into the list. And I am going to pop up the list onto this video. It's going to blow the heck out of the background. But you know what? We're going to make it work. Here are a couple things I want you to remember before you read this list or before you watch this list. First of all, this is my list. This is not the top worst comic book movies ever made. This is the ones that I don't like. I don't like. You don't like the ones you don't like. I don't like the ones I don't like. That's great because I know there's some on here that people like. Remember that you like what you like. I like what I like. That means we all get the stuff we want. Okay? So, again, I know there's going to be comments. Chill. This is my list. And honestly, if you put in the comments, I'm wrong, it's not going to make me like it even more. Just remember that. A couple factors going into the list. 1 movie per franchise. So there is not going to be, not this would be here, but not Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, not Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. It is going to be 1 movie per franchise. The 2 factors, the 2 big factors that are going into my list. How easy is it to make this movie based on the character? You have a character in your head like Wolverine and you go, okay, Wolverine movie, got it. Easy. I think we can all write a Wolverine movie. I think we can all write a Spider-Man movie. You can put a chimpanzee on a typewriter and they will figure out how to do a Spider-Man movie in probably 24 hours. But somehow the studios or whoever was in charge butchered this movie. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, did this character need a movie? Did this character or group of characters need a movie? Because there are some on this list that you go, folks, you had an entire universe, whether it's DC, Marvel, Independence. Why this one? Why did this one need to be picked? Why did you make this movie? Those are the 2 big ones. So let's jump into the list. For honorable mentions, there's no one in particular. I want you guys to know that when it comes to movies like Morbius, when it comes to movies like Green Lantern even, and I'm a giant Green Lantern fan, I went into those movies knowing they were going to be bad. We all went into Morbius watching the trailers and going, this is not going to be a great movie. And because of that, that movie is not on my list because I knew what I was getting myself into. A good analogy is if I'm meeting a friend and my friend goes, I met a guy, his name's Steve, and Steve's going to come to the party. And I go over and I see Steve, and Steve is punching somebody in the face for making him mad. There's a good chance I'm getting punched in the face when he comes to my party. So that Steve is Morbius. I know that Morbius is going to be a bad movie. I know that Green Lantern, based on the graphics and the CGI and all that, I knew it was not going to be a good movie. Those are not on my list. Okay. We ready? All right, let's jump into it. I'm going to just share my screen here because I actually got the list to work. Let's pop her open. And it's going to screw up the stream for a second, but give me one moment. Let me adjust. There we go. All right. Monday Night Nerd Top 10 Worst Comic Book Movies. Are we ready? Number 10. Sin City Game to Kill. Folks, this goes back to you had something great and you fell flat on your face. You had an amazing movie in Sin City that worked so well with the source material and was shot so well with the source material to the point where, like Watchmen, it was shot for shot as good and shot for shot, just like the comic. Yet you fell so hard to the point that most people, including my friend Dave, who is a hardcore comic book fan, forgot that this movie even existed. That's not good. In the first Sin City, you had many different stories that all kind of intertwined at moments, and characters from different stories passed each other in the night. This had the same thing, but there was no memorable characters. You the worst part was, if I remember correctly, you passed characters from the first movie in this second movie in Dame to Kill, and it just made you want to see those characters more than the ones you were currently following, including some high-profile actors like Samuel L. Jackson is in A Dame to Kill, and he's just wasted. He's so wasted. It really makes me feel like Halloween 3, where you had Halloween 1 and 2 that were great movies. And then you had Halloween 3 and you go, it looks familiar, but it's just not the same and they're missing something important. And that is good character and good story. So A Dame to Kill is on this list because, again, you just fell flat on your face after having such a great movie. And that's a frustration in my book that just bugs me. Number 9. Let's jump into number 9. And that is one that I think we can all agree with. Catwoman. Catwoman with Halle Berry from 2004. Now, you might say, Mike, you said one of your things that would keep these movies off the list was if you knew it was going to be bad. And I agree. We all knew this was going to be bad. We did not know it would be this bad, though. Like, Catwoman can be taken in many different ways. There have been many different versions, even just in the comics. But this one was bad. Halle Berry, I don't know if it was her choice, if it was the director's choice, but her performance in this was so lackluster. You had let's skip her for now. Let's go to the plot. The plot is about skincare. Now, it's a female-driven movie, and it's all about beauty. Really? That's the best plot you can come up with for a cat burglar is beauty products? How does Catwoman get her powers? Is she always been nimble like a cat? Does she, inherit some powers, by an accident? No. She gets thrown out of a window, if I remember correctly, washed up on shore, and a cat burps in her mouth, basically. That's how she gets her cat powers. I'm sorry, but come on. And then she doesn't just get cat powers like she could climb up walls. No, she literally acts like a cat. Like, they literally took the term Catwoman and made that. Like, Spider-Man does not act like a spider. He's a person with the spider abilities. This one was frustrating because I didn't think they'd fall on their face that hard, but they did. Oh, and by the way, it's not just about skincare products. It's also she's looking for a man. Because again, when you're a woman and a star, you need a guy. You just need a guy in your life. Enough with this. Catwoman, number 9. Easy number 9 for Catwoman. And honestly, there are arguments where it could be higher. Number 8. This one has some benefits, but the negatives outweigh it highly. And that is Ghost Rider 2. Spirit of Vengeance Ghost Rider, as a Ghost Rider fan, is frustrating because for the exact opposite reasons of Sin City. The first Ghost Rider had so many problems, and it could be on this list. But Ghost Rider 2 was worse because of how much feedback they got back from that first movie, and they didn't listen. They just did worse. You've got a director who, just like Battlefield Earth, if you're a movie fan, you know how infamous it is. is just full of Dutch angles. And if you don't know what a Dutch angle is, if you're looking at the camera and you turn the camera slightly like this, if you shoot a shot like this, that's what's known as a Dutch angle. The movie is filled with them. Filled with them to the point where if you're a moviegoer and you know what to look for, it's frustrating. Tilt the camera back. It's fine. This does not make a cool shot. This is fine. Nick Cage as Johnny Blaze is fine. I don't think he's a bad Johnny Blaze. Does he bring an energy to it that can be a little off-putting? 100%. However, as a character, I think he does well. The look of Ghost Rider in this movie is 100 times better than the first one. And the first one was fine. This one's even better. But the plot, again, is a guy, a demon, or a whatever he is, wants to sacrifice a kid. Really? Really? That's the best you could write? Is sacrificing a kid? Come on. No, I'm sorry. That you could do so much better than that. But again, oh, by the way, let's not forget that when the kid asks what happens when you pee, Ghost Rider makes a wink, like we all go, he probably pees fire. And they show it. Like, you don't have to show that scene. We all understand the joke. But, whatever. Spirit of Vengeance, number 2. I'm sorry. You are number 8 on this list. And as a Ghost Rider fan, you probably could be higher. Number 7. I think this is a little newer, and I think we can all, if you've seen it, you'll all agree why it's on this list. Eternals. The MCU movie that I think everybody, when they heard it, went, huh? This is something where, as I said in one of my first rules was, why? Why this? Why Eternals? This was the first Marvel movie, and I'm a pretty big comic book fan, that I went into theater and went, I have no idea who these people are. And I'll be honest, I don't know anybody who likes this movie until I met the Geeks & Co. folks. The Geeks & Co. folks actually enjoy this movie because they feel it is a very DC movie. I believe, don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I believe that is why. I can see their point. I don't agree with it, though. Tara said, hey, now some of those Eternal characters were all right. Just shouldn't put them in this movie. But if they didn't exist, would you miss them? And I think that's what I think that's kind of the point of, if they were fine characters, but I don't know if they needed to be in a movie. It is a very dialogue heavy movie. There is a few action scenes, just as any Marvel movie. I enjoy that the main idea of the story is, why didn't you get involved when Thanos showed up? Why didn't you get involved when all these other things happen? Well, we can't get involved and we can't mess with anything. For the next 2 hours, they proceed to change things and mess things up. And like, you're not the Watcher. The Watcher sits up in the sky and watches everything and goes, I'm keeping track of it. I can't get involved. These guys can't get involved, but then proceed to get involved for the next 2 hours. Again, way too deep into the comics world. I think it had way too much backstory, way too many moving parts that just, when you had such a, this was, I think, one of the first ones that really got affected by the Infinity War saga with Thanos, where you just walked into this one and you're like, so you guys were watching all this, but you didn't get involved, but it played a factor, but it was too much. It was too much for me. I remember walking out of the theater and going, that's the worst Marvel one so far. Like, it was hard to argue, but there are a couple people out there that like it. I don't know though. It's not on my list. It's not for me. I will probably, that's probably one of the only MCU movies that I will probably never ever watch again. So that's Eternals. That's number 7. Now we have to go to number 6. Number 6 is a recent movie that Venom 2. Let There Be Carnage. Was there carnage though? Really? Was that carnage? Did carnage happen in this movie? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think this was what a PG-13 version of Carnage is, because there ain't no blood in it. Let There Be Carnage. This was the character that so many people wanted to see on the screen. When the MCU really got going, I heard so many. When Spider-Man even happened, when the first Spider-Man happened, I remember seeing people go, what happens when we get Venom and Carnage? Whoa, that's going to be maximum carnage on the big screen? This was not the best showing for any comic book movie, let alone a Venom movie, which so many people went to see. And I know the studio saw the box office numbers and were like, oh, look at the numbers. It was morbid curiosity, I think. I don't think people were going because they were dying to see the movie. I think they were going to be like, well, maybe they learned. They didn't learn. As I said, PG-13 for a Carnage movie, you can't. You just can't. It's Carnage. It's one of the most sadistic killer villains in the MCU who has no problem slicing and dicing through anybody. You can't do a PG-13 movie that way. And the rumor is the next Venom movie is going to be rated R. Folks, come on. As I said, Shriek and Carnage were wasted in that movie. Shriek, another great, not great villain, but a great sidekick for Carnage. A great B character that I think could have been used very well. Very similar to Domino, very similar to a Cable and Deadpool, where they're not the biggest characters in the Marvel universe, but are well deserving to have an appearance in a movie. The bromance between Venom and Eddie Brock, where Brock or Venom doesn't feel like he's appreciated by Eddie Brock, so he goes on like a sad crying binge at a rave. Like, dude, come on. This is one of the biggest characters in the Marvel universe. And they just wasted it with that. And again, you saw everyone's critique of the first one, but they saw the numbers and went, people went and saw it, let's do it again. But they didn't listen to the audience. They didn't listen to the audience after they left. They just listened to the audience when they paid their money. They heard the ching. They didn't hear the comments after them. So Venom 2 is on this list, and I feel it's deservingly so. Number 5. Let's get to the halfway point. Sin City, Catwoman, Ghost Rider, Eternals, Venom, Fan for Stick. Fantastic Four from 2015, as the internet calls it, Fan for Stick. Is it that hard to write a family dynamic superhero movie? Because it seems like The Incredibles can do it, but it seems like the Fantastic Four has such a problem with that family dynamic. The first two were not great, but it was better. It was understandable. It was the generation where, the Ben Affleck Daredevil and the Blade and stuff like that. So they didn't get it 100%. But this one, come on. Like, first off, the actors that they chose for all this had the 1990s, 1980s aesthetic of, we're in high school. But this morning I shaved a whole bunch of facial hair off to look like a teenager because I'm actually like 35. And you could clearly tell that they're almost in their 30s, if not in their early 30s, and they're supposed to be high school. The visuals on the movie, it is such a dark movie, and I don't mean dark as in moody. I mean dark as in click, lights off, dark. For some reason, they thought that meant moody. I don't think so, but it was a very dark movie. The characters just had no drive. Like, they all felt like they were phoning it in. The cast was okay. What's his name who plays Goose in the new Top Gun Maverick was Mr. Fantastic, and I think he did a fine job. I think there's better out there, and I think that's proven with the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch was fine. I know a lot of people ripped into that because, again, it's a race issue, and I don't understand why that's an issue. I think it's fine. Miles Teller, thank you, Tara. Yes, Miles Teller was great. Michael B. Jordan. Sue Storm was good. The guy who played Ben Grimm was fine. Dr. Doom was not Dr. Doom. Why he was an electrified alien guy coming off the planet, I don't know. Why they had to touch the ooze and slime on another planet, I don't understand. And yeah, it was all over the place, and there was barely any action. Some of the Eternals where it was just a lot of dialogue. And let's show everybody using their powers on a video screen in another shot, so they're not really seeing what's happening. It's just it failed. It really failed, and I think everybody agrees. That's why we're not getting another Fantastic Four until 2030 at this point. I figured the MCU would have pulled it out by now, but they still haven't, except for, again, the Multiverse of Madness. But yeah, number 5, Fan Four Stick. I think we can all agree on how bad that is. Number 4, let's all jump in our Wayback Machine and remember that Elektra had a movie. Did you remember Elektra had a movie? The Elektra from the Ben Affleck Daredevil. Most people forgets it exists. I don't, because that was one of the first movies in the entire comic book genre that I went, why does this exist? For many reasons, not just because it was a bad movie. For those who remember the Ben Affleck Daredevil, and to be fair, I like that movie for its corniness. I mean, we got Evanescence out of it, so I'm happy with that. And Bullseye was in it, which is a great villain of Daredevil's. Bullseye kills Elektra. Do you remember that? Do you remember that she gets her sai shot through her chest by Bullseye, and she dies, dead, done. So when the Elektra movie came out, I went, okay, prequel, that could work. I'm interested. Let's see what this prequel. No. It's a sequel. She comes back to life. Really? So you negated everything emotional from that movie of Daredevil going to, come back from get revenge for her death? Come on, what a waste. You had a very boring villain in The Hand, which for you TMNT fans, yes, that is where the foot came from. They stole the name from there and changed it to the foot. The Hand as a group of villains isn't the worst villain in the world, but they were just written poorly. And again, going back to the Catwoman problem, she's looking for a guy. I mean, she's got a love interest in the movie who's a random guy. And it's like, does she need it? No. But we got to make her want a guy. She's not intimidating. I think Jessica Alba tried her absolute best with that movie, but it just fell apart. Like, she's not intimidating as Elektra. She doesn't have the presence of Elektra. Elektra's supposed to be a very, very skilled assassin. and she just seems like she's showing off, and it just doesn't work. I think the biggest problem, if you're a comic fan, is she has so many good. I shouldn't say so many. She has a couple very good runs in the comic books that you could pull from. You've got the Brian Michael Bendis Marvel Knights. You've got Frank Miller's amazing run on Elektra, and they just didn't do anything with her. They just made a really boring movie with a boring character that nobody was asking for, and that's why it's number 4. Number 3. Oop, that was me. Hang on. What am I doing? There we go. I am messing everything up. Wrong screen. Number 3. We're going to go way back on this one. And we're going to go way back. Now, back in the early 90s, late 80s, Marvel had some movies before the big Spider-Man MCU explosion. They were not that great. However, this one sticks out. Howard the Duck. Now, you're probably saying, why this one compared to the other ones? Because we had The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren. You had The Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. You had a Swamp Thing movie. You had, what else? I think Thor made an appearance in the Hulk movie. Why Howard the Duck? And that is the answer. Why Howard the Duck? Why him? Even now, if you asked a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you said, our next movie, big screen movie, is Howard the Duck, 40% would probably know who you're talking about. 40% would probably go, the duck from that was in Guardians, I think, and was in a couple other things in the background. And I think 20% would probably go, I have no idea who you're talking about. And that's now in this culture. Let's go back to 1986 when this came out. Who thought this was a good choice? First off, the effects in this are bad. Howard the Duck is a costume, obviously. They didn't have CGI back then, so it is a person in an animatronic suit. I believe it was a dwarf. Again, if it's not, I apologize, but I believe it was a dwarf. Not the best looking suit. Didn't really get the vibe of the character. Looked closer to Donald Duck than Howard the Duck. It's a movie that, if you know anything about Howard the Duck, he's very adult themed, and not adult themed as in pushing it, but he pushes the envelope when it comes to material being suggestive for a younger audience. They tried to do it with this movie, but they didn't go all the way. They pulled back at points. So it feels weird because you could tell they're wanting to push the envelope, but then they pull back. They push and they pull, and it gets annoying. There is duck boobs in this movie because they go look at a version of Howard's World where everyone's a duck, and someone looking at a duck Playboy, and there is duck boobs because we needed that. And it's just a boring plot. I mean, I've seen the movie twice, and I can barely remember what happened. There's a big villain, and the name is something like Big Villain. Like, it's not a good plot. It's a boring movie. And in 1986, you had so many other characters you could have picked from the Marvel Universe that why they picked that one, I have no idea. Especially when they could have pushed it further and they just didn't. So that is why Howard the Duck is on there. That is in my top 3. Let's go into my number 2. This is the second worst movie that I've seen. Okay? Second worst comic book movie that I've seen. And that is an independent comic book movie called Barbed Wire. Those who don't know what Barbed Wire is, it is a comic book by... What was the comic book publisher? It's not IDW. Anyways, stop doing dead air. It is a movie about a female protagonist who is the big, busty, blonde, leather character, and she is a vigilante who goes out and kills people. The comic's fine. It's an early 90s comic. However, in 1996, they wanted to make a movie out of it. And they cast a big celebrity in this, Pamela Anderson. And Pamela Anderson physically fits the role of Barbed Wire perfectly. Physically, it is the comic in real life. However, she cannot act. And it is so obvious where they got this plot from that if you've seen the movie and you've seen the infamous movie, it is severely ripping off. It's funny. If you've never seen this movie, the plot is basically Casablanca. Like, almost exactly, except for the setting. The end scene of Barbed Wire is her and a guy in front of a plane in the rain. Like, it is so funny that they tried to take the most famous movie ever and do a version of it in this, and thinking no one would notice. Like, Pamela Anderson as Barbed Wire can distract from a lot. In the first scene of this movie, she is an exotic dancer, and she is hanging from a contraption, topless, with water falling on her. As a teenager, that is the greatest scene ever shot in the world. However, after that scene ends, it takes a turn for the worst because she is not a good actress. And she's Canadian, so I got to give her a little bit of props because she's Canadian. But, oh man, she is not a good actress. The cast is just, nobody cares. And again, if you've seen Casablanca and you watch this movie, you're going, they're just totally ripping this movie off. It's about contacts and getting into Canada. Like, they're trying to find these contacts that'll pass through this new border system that they've incorporated. By the way, the setting is like 2055 or something, where you need retina scan to get through the border. Like, it's so bad. But again, if you're a teenager in 1996 and you see that opening scene, it's a great scene. And as a teenager who saw that, it's a great scene. But you just don't care after that first 3 minutes. It just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So that is my number 2. I'm going to take a drink before we jump into number 1. I'm going to take a big drink before we jump into number 1. Number 1. Let's go through this list one more time before I get my head taken off. Number 10, Sin City Dame to Kill. Number 9, Catwoman. Number 8, Ghost Rider 2. Number 7, The Eternals. Number 6, Venom 2. Number 5, Fan 4 Stick. Number 4, Elektra. Number 3, Howard the Duck. Number 2, Barbed Wire. And now for my number 1. Now I want to stress, as I stressed earlier, this is my list. This is the movies that I have seen that I do not like. This is a movie that I have seen twice. I saw it first time in theaters. I saw it again later on, and I will probably watch it again because my 100 movies that I have to watch poster, it is on that list. So I will watch it one more time. But I'm telling you, the amount of people that tell me this is their favorite comic book movie is huge. And I can't stand this movie. Now, my worst comic book movie is Dark Knight. Shall we go through why I don't like this movie? Yes, The Dark Knight. Yes, that is my worst. That is the worst to me. And there are many reasons why, and I will tell you exactly why. I am a Batman fan. just like any other comic book fan. I think he is one of the best comic book characters ever written. I think his Rogues Gallery is one of the strongest ever written, maybe second only to Spider-Man. You could write a Batman story in your sleep. This was one of the most frustrating movies I've ever seen. Personally, I can't stand Christopher Nolan's directing. I can't stand it. I think his visual style is so artsy that it just bugs me. I like Prestige. I like Insomnia. But I feel like after this, he got his style, and it just frustrates me. I feel anytime I watch one of Christopher Nolan's movies, I go, it's a Christopher Nolan movie. And I can tell from the moment it starts. I feel that Christopher Nolan made Batman too real. When I go into a comic book movie, I understand that I'm watching a piece of fiction. I understand that there is going to be parts of this that I have to turn my brain off if I think about reality. This is the most real they've ever written Batman, and I feel it ruins him. When in The Flash, and yes, I'm using The Flash as a reference, when the Batwing goes in the air and he needs to jump out of the plane, and he jumps out and his cape pops open and he swooshes down onto the ground. Completely understand that is completely unrealistic and couldn't happen in the real world. I do not need Lucius Fox to be going over to Bruce Wayne and going, now if I go over this with an electric current, it will get hard and it will act like I don't care. I don't need that extra stuff. I don't need you to break down every single reason why this would work. Let me figure it out on my own. Heath Ledger is the only thing about that movie I appreciate. I appreciate his Joker. However, the Joker, and I will go to my grave with this, is the most overused villain ever. Any time they need to pull a Batman story out of their butts, they use him, and it is a crutch at this point. Batman has so many better rogues than him, and they get none of the love that they deserve. And the person who gets crapped on the most in this is the rogue that I love the most, and that is Two-Face. I stand by that Two-Face is the best rogue for Batman, hands down, because it is a personal reason why. Joker, I get. Batman's grumpy. Joker's happy. He's good. He's bad. I get the boring bleh reasons. Two-Face is the only person Batman has never been able to save. Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne and Batman were best friends, and Batman couldn't save him. He is the one person besides Robin who he has always going to have on his conscience of, I could save everybody, I couldn't save my best friend. That is an intriguing storyline that they never use. They always just pull, he's crazy, out of their back pocket. And it just is a waste at this point. I've seen Joker in every single adaptation of Batman has had a Joker now, including ones that don't even have Batman in it. We've had Nicholson. We've had Heath Ledger. We've had, what's his name, the singer. We've had, all the comic or the cartoon ones, the Gotham one. Like every version of Batman has had a Joker. We don't need any more. We have so many other characters that they never touch. The voice, is parodied to death, and there's a reason why. It's a bad voice. It was a bad choice from the beginning. It's worse in this. It's less in the third one, but it's still there. It's a bad choice for a voice. And Nolan should have said something, but he didn't. I don't know why, but he didn't. What else? Christian Bale is not a good Batman. Let's remember, and I want to break this down even more because I don't think a lot of people mention this. When you're an actor and you're playing Batman, you're playing two roles, and they're very different. And there are very, very few that get it right. You're playing Bruce Wayne and you're playing Batman. Two different roles. You need to get both of them right. Ben Affleck did it good. Keaton did good. Kilmer, nah. Clooney, great Bruce, terrible Batman. I don't think Christian Bale does either well. I don't find him intimidating as Batman. I don't find him cocky as Bruce. I feel like if you could cast him as a younger Bruce, maybe in his late teens, early 20s, I could see him because he doesn't come off as the playboy billionaire Bruce. He comes off as the spoiled rich kid Bruce, which in this movie, it fails for me. I don't see how it's a good Bruce. What else? I've got some notes here. They use the same plot point twice. Bruce has to pick between Rachel and Dent to save one of them. And then there's the choice between the prisoners and the innocents on the raft or on the ferries, and which one's going to save each other. If that is the Joker's thing, is we're gonna have him choose, and there's going to be choice. If you're that like Joker, again, I'm not a fan of Joker, but I will give him the credit of being the crazy psychopath. If your thing is, I'm just going to have Bruce choose twice in one movie, come on. You could have written that so much better. He needed to just go out and slaughter people. The whole I'm anarchy, no. He's not anarchy. He's crazy. I don't know. That's my own. That bugs me. And last but not least, the ending. Again, killing Two-Face in the way they did was frustrating. Having him only be in, I think, 3 scenes in the movie, and he looks so good, was a waste. And I don't understand how at the end they make Dent the hero and make Batman the villain. How does that work, really? Why doesn't Gordon just say, Dent was kidnapped by the Joker, the Joker killed him, and Batman saved my family? Because in the end, Dent has Gordon's family, and Batman kills Dent to save him. Why doesn't Dent just go in front of everybody and say, Batman did he saved my family, but Joker took Dent and killed him? Then we don't have to have this big, the city's after me now. Why? You could have easily gone around that. Or Dent dies by getting kicked off a balcony or whatever it was, a structure, and falls. What do they do with Dent's body? Like, he's burnt like Two-Face. Does no other cop see the body? Because they do a funeral for him, so unless it's an empty casket, but you're guessing he's in the casket, does no other officer see that and go, what happened to this Two-Face looking guy? It looks like Dent. What's up with him? And there's no questions. It just, he's in the casket, and that's it. So, I personally, I understand that people like it because of the realism, the grittiness of it. Personally, I can't say it. I can't see how good that movie is. And I think if people said it's a good one, I could kind of see it. But people saying it's the best one ever, sorry, I don't see it. And it's my choice. Again, it's my list. But yeah, we are past the 1 hour mark. We're at the 1 hour, 5 minute mark. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for chiming in the chat. I completely understand if people are going to be unfollowing me because of this, but yeah, this is my list, and I just I have my reasons. But again, thank you all for joining me. This has been a great Monday Night Nerd. I will be back next week. I don't think I have a topic for next week, but I think it probably will be something about getting ready for Fan Expo and kind of prepping as a cosplayer. Have a great week, folks. I will see you again soon, and you all take care. Stay nerdy, folks. See you next week. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.